Hello and welcome to the Salt City Gamecast. This is episode 137. My name is Nick Naylor. Sitting across from me, Jared Alm.
Hey, what's up? You sound a little nasally.
2 weeks ago, I was bitching and I was in the thick of allergies. We talked about my tree that drops in 2 to 3 weeks.
Tree from heaven or whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah. We're right at the tail end of that adventure.
Yeah.
And today, I woke up, I was feeling good. It's been a rough 2 weeks, like one of the worst seasons I've had in a while, right?
Yeah.
And just waking up with your whole face wet. Underneath my eye, I was getting raw because it was always wet for just 2 weeks.
That's
like,
disgusting.
it is. Listen, I'm right there, right? Yep. I wish it wasn't happening too.
I've never had damp under eyes that I can remember.
It was really bad. And then we went on a short trip to Bear Lake, and I'm like, this will be great. It'll be better. Oh no, whatever is here is also
Followed
there
you.
because and we went golfing at one point.
Yeah,
and the wind started blowing and it was snowing. So
what?
of just tree.
Oh, gotcha.
Tree sex juice, right? And
yeah,
I'm just out in a fairway. My brother-in-law is looking at me and he's like, this doesn't seem like it's going to help your situation. And I'm surrounded by a blizzard. I'm just everything I hate. It was really bad. I woke up this morning, I'm feeling great. I'm like, we're through it.
Yeah.
The tree is now dropping its sticks. I'm like, well, really to drive this home, let's really clean up the exterior patio. We're going to pressure wash it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that, which was in hindsight a poor decision.
Yeah.
So my whole neck started breaking out red.
Damn.
My beard is itchy. I almost shaved it off, which would have been traumatizing for everyone involved.
Agreed.
So in my I was like, I might die. I don't know. So I went and found some Benadryl and I popped some of those. And I usually don't take Benadryl.
Yeah, that shit fucks you
during
up.
the waking hours.
That shit will drop you.
So my wife, she's been taking a rest and she came upstairs and I told her, she's like, you took Benadryl at 2? I'm like, yeah, it was that. It's still that serious. And she's like, this is going to be bad for you. Also, you got to go pick up the dogs. So I drove to pick up the dogs. Wasn't too bad yet, but by the time I got back, I went and fell asleep for almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
Woke up, looked, and I'm like, Jared's going to be here in 10 minutes. I got to get going.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just glad to be through it. It's been an absolutely miserable experience. I'm not quite sure why this year is twice as bad as any year in recent memory. I need to look at the pollen.
Yeah.
Pretty sure people track that shit, right?
The pollen count?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I should go and look into that.
I've been traveling a lot, obviously, and I've noticed the little widget at the bottom of my laptop in general places. It seems like it's always pollen warning, high pollen warning. But I've learned where it affects me and where it does not. In the South, the pollen does not seem to affect me. I'm fine.
It all gets wet, falls to the ground.
Yeah. But I was in Illinois this week in Chicago, and it affected me pretty good. I got to where I work, and my nose would just not stop running, and it was super embarrassing because I was just blowing my nose, throwing the tissue away, and then immediately it was coming again, and I had to have conversations with people. And there's just fucking snot. I'm sucking the snot back up into my nose, which is a horrible feeling. So yeah, you can't catch a break.
It sucks is what it is. But I think tomorrow I'll wake up a new man because the outside is not bad or not nearly what it was. So
don't say that.
Things
you set yourself up for failure there.
I need to feel better. It's just it needs to happen. I'm worried about my health. Which is why I'm drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
I had a
big health nuts over here on Salt City Gamecast.
While I was making this cocktail, I was like, I've already made this for him. I better make sure I track it, but I'm pretty sure I have not.
Okay.
Because I would have brought it up. It's called The Last Word, and we do the last call. So I remember when I heard about it, I was like, hey,
right,
kind of close, right?
Sure.
But this is using equal parts, so it's super easy to make.
Okay.
Gin, Green Chartreuse that we've talked about that's kind of tough to find.
You got to be running low.
I got a bottle.
Oh, you did?
They came in. Our friend Dan sent me a text. My wife was out and about. Boom, boom, boom. She went there. They had them in the back. And they're like, yeah, this is crazy. We're already almost sold out. So I am restocked. I got a full-size bottle.
Good for you.
So we have other drinks to make.
All right.
So gin, green chartreuse, that maraschino liqueur that we had last week for the
Yeah.
old fashioned.
Yeah.
And lime juice.
Okay.
Done.
Yeah.
I have made this before. I think it's gonna be hit and miss on people because it's got a big personality. I really like it. But what do you want to describe it?
It's got bold flavors.
It's your friend that's really fun, but sometimes he's like, "Oh, I don't know, man. You're just a little too much."
Am I that guy?
It's me in cocktail form. I don't know.
Oh yeah. We probably feel the same way about one another, depending on the scenario. Yeah, no, I like it. I mean, it's citrus forward, so it's definitely my jam. I got a lot of licorice flavor off the jump on this, and like I enjoy chartreuse, the other cocktails we've had, but for some reason the combination of the gin and the chartreuse, it's got like a black licorice vibe on top of the citrus, which I fucking despise that shit.
Yeah, well, I think it's because of the equal parts. Like usually the cocktails I've seen that use that, it's nowhere near equal parts, and I'm wondering I should actually just kind of screw around with it about cutting that quantity down a little.
Yeah.
And because then you're just talking, all the other cocktails, you could probably remove the chartreuse in this thing. It's probably already has a name, probably, but it's probably really good. So I should try that. But this isn't an out of the like left field cocktail. This is considered like a classic cocktail for this style and for chartreuse. If you go search what to make with it, it's like one of the 3 that keep popping up.
Gotcha. I would never turn this away. I will say that.
Okay.
It's not so offensive to me, that licorice flavor, that I'm like, ugh. It's there in the background.
And I hate licorice flavor as well, but for whatever reason, my taste buds don't quite identify it as such. For this cocktail.
No, it's definitely not bad at all. Is it my favorite that we've made? No, probably not. But
we made some pretty good ones, though.
We have made some pretty fucking good ones.
We should force ourselves to rank them. This should be a big lift. We got to move them around on the board.
We should make a cocktail book. But then it would just be like stealing like other people's ideas and us taking credit for it.
I mean, I usually try to adjust them, but not always. That's only a few of them that I try to do my own stuff.
I really appreciate it. I mean, I know I harp on this pretty often on this show, but over at my place, it's very basic. You know what I mean? Last night I made, while we were playing a little bit of Destiny, I made a Arnold Palmer and vodka.
It was vodka and lemonade?
Well, yeah, but like the actual cans of Arnold Palmer.
Oh, you made a can. You got it.
Yeah. Just put vodka into it. And that works. It's good. But yeah, I'm very basic. But as soon as I come over here, I'm like, man, I feel fancy.
You get something new. It's my new hobby, clearly, because I'm just keep on moving from drink to drink. We were recently talking with my brother-in-law about cocktails in Utah, because I do not like to order cocktails in Utah.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare. There's very few places that will even make it right. And a lot of them are just kind of watered down. They're not it. And before, our laws didn't allow them to use enough booze to really make them proper. So we were searching the other day, and they now do. So it's kind of more insulting, because as I've been making them, like 2 ounces is your base of so many things.
Yeah, you can do it now.
You can do 2.5.
Right.
So I now it's on them.
There's got to be a place. There's got to be a place that's doing it right. Then you know what I mean.
I think there's to be half as big as you want them to be, or because they're still not. Like, they're not making them the standard size. I don't understand why.
Yeah, but my point still stands that, there are a lot of places making cocktails in Utah.
Sure.
And there's surely got to be a place that's doing it right. There's a couple that come to mind for me. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're doing it right, but, they've kind of positioned themselves in Salt Lake City as like the cocktail bars, like Water Witch is one of them, which I think is a fantastic name. But I have not had great experiences at Water Witch. It's fine, but it's just a little too hipstery for my tastes. And then the Rest is another one that, is definitely a cocktail bar. And that's like
great,
pretty pretentious.
The problem with a lot of the restaurants that you might be drawn to that are kind of on the high end, they just coincide with also hipster bars. Like
Yeah.
they almost go hand in hand. Like we have some steakhouses and stuff, but a lot of the fancy places you go to, they're all that Pago crowd. Like it's all the fucking thing.
The bartender rolls up on his fixie and he's got a handlebar mustache and he's wearing suspenders and a beret, and he's like, "My name is Claude. I'm here to make your cocktail for you." And you're like, we don't need to be this pretentious here, guy. Like, just fucking mix some booze up and give it to me, right?
Yeah.
But the good thing is that we're becoming a real state, and we're getting some
stuff.
We're getting laxer laws here, so maybe one day we'll be a real state, and certainly somebody's going to come along and make a good product and realize what they need to do the right way to kind of emulate some of these other places in different states. So, yeah, the future is bright.
It generally seems to be getting better. I mean, it absolutely is getting better. So
yeah, well,
when I started thinking you had to have a club, or every place that was a bar had to be a private club for members.
Right.
That was super irritating.
I missed that train. Like right after I turned 21 is when they did away with that. So, or right before, I should say. So, I never had to deal with that, but that's some crazy shit. Like, you got to pay like a membership fee every single time that you go to the bar. And it's just, and I remember like advertisements, like on the radio or television for any bars, it would be like a private club for members. And it's like, that's fucking weird. It's just a bar.
The only one that's not a private club is Chili's.
Yeah.
Fucking go to Chili's.
Seriously, TGIF Fridays, not a private club for members.
Whatever that. Is that still around?
TGIF Fridays? I have no fucking clue. I don't know. I've never been a fan of it. Like, I went, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in my life, and I was like, this place sucks.
It's not it. It's not the place to go. Okay. All right. I was kind of double second guessing myself earlier today. I was like, are we talking Nintendo stuff? Did we talk about Nintendo stuff the previous show?
We did not.
It was just after.
Right.
That Nintendo came out. They did one of their directs. They're never going to change. It doesn't matter. They can do whatever they want. Their directs are so cheesy. Like, it's just like, from a perspective for me to sit down and be like, let's watch an entertainment product that's revealing games. You're just like, this sucks.
It's very Japanese in its execution. Yeah. You get one of the many, C-suite executives to bow. And then, you've got this very like jovial translator who is the same guy. He's probably making a fucking killing, that dude. Because it's always the same dude's voice that narrates the entire thing over the Japanese dialogue.
The snapping, it's just like, next game.
Oh yeah.
Oh my Lord.
That's pretty bad. That's pretty fucking bad. But it's their whole thing. I wonder what they're gonna do, because the rumor is that the new Joy-Cons are like magnetic. There's some sort of magnetic technology, so like the snapping is not a thing anymore. In theory, maybe the magnets will snap onto the Switch and they'll still be able to carry it on. But yeah, like, what's the sound of a magnet? What is the sound a magnet makes? They just have a hammer, and before every game, they're just like bang, something like that.
I don't know, man, but I'm sure. I mean, they'll come up with something.
Yeah, aside from the cheesy kind of presentation of the show, I think this was a pretty good one. Honestly,
they announced plenty of stuff as far as a lot of stuff's coming this year. Not necessarily things that I'm over the moon for, but like, if you are in that ecosystem and you're wondering what games are coming out between now and Christmas, they filled out that calendar. Like,
sure,
they absolutely did. I think you have a list of what they announced, but where do you want to start with this?
We'll talk about the ones that interest me the most first. Obviously, Metroid Prime 4. That's the big one for me.
Closed on that, I believe.
Closed on that?
Like, that was the last.
Oh, that was, yes. They closed on that one. It's nice to see that game, like actual gameplay of that game. If you want to follow the rumor mill, it's been a pretty tumultuous, process of development. As far as I understand, Bandai Namco was producing it or developing it at some point, and then it was moved over to the dudes that have done like the last couple of Metroid games. So completely scrapped whatever the project was, and they've revitalized it. And I mean, that shit looks like Metroid Prime. So I mean, from that perspective, I'm excited, but I will say that the gameplay that they showed off did not really get me super excited. It seemed a little rough. I mean, it looked nice, but it just seemed like very early on, right?
Yep.
So we'll have to see what happens with that.
My thoughts on it were essentially, one, I've played the first Prime and half of the second one.
Yeah.
And really enjoyed my time with that series. I will probably, without looking at anything, really enjoy this game.
Sure.
With that said, it looks like Metroid Prime 4. And by saying that, it looks like Metroid Prime 4 that came out a few years after Metroid Prime 3, which came out in 2007. So it's been 17 years,
right?
And it doesn't, like, the gameplay and everything. I was like, well, yeah, that it really looks like a sequel to Metroid Prime 3, and I think it's a little bit of a problem that I get to say that when it's been almost 2 decades between the two.
Yeah, I mean, it just didn't show well from a trailer perspective, and
a lame trailer,
right? I agree. Like, obviously, the situation at the beginning with the new ship she's in, and the iconic, intro music of her kind of beaming down, and you see Samus in the fucking suit, and you're like, "Fuck yeah!" That was good. The way that I felt initially, but then when we get into the actual gameplay, yes, it looks very similar to those earlier games. But with any Metroid game, regardless if it's in the Prime series or any of the other 2D platforming games, there's usually a hook to the gameplay. And I would have liked to see that hook shown off, but there was really nothing shown that you haven't seen from previous Prime games. So
whether it's a unique gadget or something,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
But there's got to be something. Like, I would be shocked if there's not some sort of hook with this thing. And so, yeah, we'll just have to kind of wait and see. But, ultimately, Metroid is one of my favorite series of all time, pretty much across the board. So very excited about that one.
I would think that game, they said 2025, Switch 2 is 2025. The last 2 consoles, one of the games that released at launch was on both systems with Zelda. I would think that this is going to be both systems. That I would be surprised if they had a Metroid Prime. Like, you can't say 2025 you have a new console and not have that on the new one. So it's going to be on the new one. It's, if anything, it's more likely it's not actually on the current gen Switch. Right.
Which would be great, honestly, because in theory, you're going to have a beefier game that's going to run better.
I don't think they'll do it because of the 200 million consoles or however many consoles the Switch has.
Right. I mean, definitely it'll be like on both platforms, obviously, because it's going to be so early on in the release cycle for the new console. But yeah, Nintendo's, just like broadly speaking, is kind of in a weird position with this stuff because, they're showing off a lot of games that, are coming out either in 2024 or 2025. And when you've got a console coming out that same year, supposedly, it's just kind of a weird thing, you know? But, I mean, I think that the reasonable and best guess that I have is that, they'll just market it as like, you can play it on the original Switch, but if you buy it on the new Switch, it's going to perform better. And that's appealing, right? Like, that's not a problem from a marketing perspective. They'll still sell a lot of copies. So
no, I'll be upset if it wasn't on the next Switch. That would be like, I really don't want to play any high profile game on the Switch again. Like,
right.
I'm just, the performance has gotten to me and I'm over it. I don't want to touch the thing.
Yeah, we just need to. We'll have to see what happens because it's one of those things where kind of the way that they handle it is important. I feel like, I mean, pie in the sky. I would love to see, and we've talked about it before, but I would love to see, them come out when they announce this thing, sooner rather than later, and say, look, like, you want better frame rates in Pokemon, you want better frame rates in the new Zelda title, like. if you've got access to that already, you've purchased it, it's gonna run better on this new console. And Nintendo is kind of gross in a lot of ways, so I don't know if there's going to be some sort of like buy-in fee for that. I hope not. But we'll just have to see but if they do this the right way, they can position themselves for a lot of success. Not that they weren't going to have success anyways, because the Switch is such a, I mean, like, objectively, I think the Switch is one of the best ideas for a console that maybe has ever existed. Certainly revitalized my interest in Nintendo, because I fucking skipped the Wii U and was just like, Nintendo games are good. Like, first party Nintendo games are fine, but like, I don't want to hold a fucking TV, on my lap.
It was bad.
An iPad. Bad. So yeah, we'll just kind of have to see what happens with that. But the other one that I'm excited about is the new Legend of Zelda. And it's actually kind of topical because we were talking about Master Key last show, and I was just like, yeah, I just want to see something that brings new ideas and new mechanics in, and like say what you will about the art style. I know that you don't like the art style. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. Like, I would prefer it to be, honestly, like my perfect scenario for, a kind of isometric Zelda experience is like hand-drawn sprites. Yeah. And like, we've shied away from that, like, across the board. I also want that for fighting games, like really detailed, hand-drawn sprites. And the industry has just like shifted away from that so drastically. And it's kind of sad to me. So that's what I'd like to see. But what I am excited for is just, one, you're playing as Zelda, which is a very cool idea, I feel like. And the gameplay
after 40 years.
Yeah. And the gameplay is fucking very interesting from the perspective of like what you've come to know from a Zelda title.
Absolutely.
She's got this rod, the tri-rod or whatever the fuck it's called. And it looks like she can, create essentially copies of different things in the environments. So all the combat is kind of centered around that. Whereas like there's not a lot of melee, at least that they showed off, and it's more creating, different items to combat enemies, and then also creating enemies from the environment to fight for you. So, look,
it's really interesting, and it's
really
interesting. Nintendo really doesn't go this way, but they really could have just swapped out the skin in a way,
sure,
and just say, "Oh yeah, you're playing as Zelda." So it is cool that they are literally trying to like make it its own thing.
Yeah.
And the nice part about that is if it's successful, it could literally become its own thing. That that it's a drastically different look at how Zeldas play,
for sure,
if they keep going down that route.
Yeah, definitely. Very, very interesting. And like, look, I've said it and been consistent about that, even though I was kind of critical of Tears of the Kingdom in certain ways. Anuma and his team are some of the most creative people in the industry. And so the fact that they're coming with like some new ideas, like, sure, I'm very interested in that. So that's coming out this year, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So that's a big game for this year. I would probably say I wouldn't touch it, but there's my daughter will for sure be interested, so I will definitely probably pick it up right when it comes out.
Right.
So, but
yeah, I know you hated the remake of Link's Awakening.
It's not for me.
I didn't finish it either, but I enjoyed the time that I did have with that game, I will say. But yes, it's just the character design more than anything else that gets me. Like, I think the game broadly looks really nice. It's just the weird kind of like
chibi,
50s,
chibi. What you want to call them? It's just
50s like cartoon with the big black eyes. It's just not my favorite either. I'm not as critical as you are, but I definitely don't like it that much either.
I don't like it when my characters don't look right like that. Like this is kind of quite a bit different, but with like Bravely Default, they have art books, and these characters are drawn as normal characters, and they're awesome. They look all cool, and then you go and you fucking look at them on the 3DS, and they're these goddamn little like, what the fuck are you?
Yeah,
you're not you're not the cool chick in this book.
Right,
You don't even
right.
like her.
Right.
Drives me nuts.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on from that, the next thing that interests me quite a bit is Dragon Quest 3 remake. 1, 2, and 3, I should add.
3 is this year. 1 and 2 are in next year or something, right? I thought it was 3 this year. Then they said 1, 2 is also being remade.
I thought that they were releasing them all at the same time. No,
I don't think I would bet money that with the way I saw it, well, because they showed a lot of 3,
right?
And then they said that it was coming out, and then they said like also in development 1 and 2 or something.
Well, that was the thing is like this had already been announced. The remake of 3 had already been announced.
Oh, okay.
The big hook was 1 and 2 were also being released. So that was what the whole thing was about. But like I don't know. I can't speak and say
go back
that
to the tapes and find out. Either way,
it's a cool prospect.
It's bringing some pretty old Dragon Quests and making them a little easier for you to play if you want to check those boxes. So
yeah. I saw some people talking about getting hands-on at some of the closed door events over the last little bit. And while there is definitely quality of life improvements, I've also heard that they are pretty hardcore still and pretty difficult. So, you're going to have to appreciate kind of an old school RPG, which I do, cut my teeth on that shit. So very excited for that. It's kind of weird. The third one is canonically or chronologically, I should say, the first in the series.
Of course it is.
And then you're supposed to play 3 and then 1 and 2 after that. And that's like a whole arc of story. But yeah, very excited about that. There's not really much to say. That's also coming out this year, as far as I understand. So that one is one to look forward to. Look, it's going to be old school. It's going to be kind of tough. And, with all of the amount of improvements they probably made, like you would probably alienate a lot of your fans of those games if you completely, modernized kind of the execution there. So that one is definitely worth keeping an eye on, and we'll see what happens there. The other one that was very interesting to me was, and this might surprise you, but the NES Champions Edition.
With all the games?
Yeah, it's all the games. Yeah. So yeah, like if you remember from back in the 80s, there was the World Championships. Those carts are like some of the most coveted carts that exist for the original Nintendo. Thousands and thousands of dollars to get a serialized cart, which is ridiculous. It's got dip switches on it and everything. Yeah. And they were only awarded to certain people that won those competitions. That's why they're exceedingly rare and expensive. But yeah, like I think that Nintendo's done a really good job of kind of taking these tried and true experiences like F-Zero 99, Tetris 99, and kind of spinning like a modern take on those experiences.
Throwing some leaderboards into this stuff.
Yeah.
And all these, they showed that. I think they showed Excite Bike and stuff with time. So that's always fun. I hope this doesn't really apply to me, but it would if I had like a large group of friends on Switch. But I hope you can easily search your times against your friends, because the problem with the worldwide leaderboards is you're immediately like, well, I don't know who the fuck's number 1, but that's not within my realm. Like it's impossible. It's a bunch of sickos at the top. But I've always really enjoyed it when you can then sort by your friends and say, hey, look, I'm faster than you here or something.
Right. Yeah. And this thing's going to live or die on kind of the different modes and games that are available in this collection. So it could be really cool. I like the idea of like taking these tried and true classic games and being like, okay, now let's inject some competitiveness into this. So that's an interesting one for me as well.
Re-release the running pad and give me leaderboards. I'm really fucking good at track and field. Jared and I,
we're just like in our socks, just fucking woo.
I burned a lot of calories as a 4th grader playing that fucking game.
Sure.
It was like, I remember it was dripping sweat. It was until we found out we could just cheat.
Yeah. But True. The next one that's interesting to me is Mario and Luigi Brothership, which is a funny name.
Being billed as like the first new entry in Mario for a long, like a new
Well, Mario and
New
Luigi is like a
new
long running series that is quite good. I mean, at least the original ones, you know, on the Game Boy Advanced, those games were really, really good. And they're pretty fun RPGs that kind of the way that or the reason why I enjoyed them back in the day is they definitely emulate some of the mechanics of Super Mario RPG from the SNES, which I love that game. It's like one of my favorite RPGs from the Super Nintendo, up there with Chrono Trigger and a couple of others. So very excited to see what they do with that. That series in particular has kind of had a rocky recent, you know, going. The last couple of games have not reviewed particularly well, and the studio that was kind of tasked with developing these games is no longer in existence. So, and Nintendo, oddly,
they've been weird about
it's just like, yeah, we're not going to tell you who's developing it, which I think is unacceptable behavior, and I don't understand why you would do that.
They don't want. It's really gross. It's just gross that they don't allow any of their studios to like garner name recognition on so much of this stuff. Where it's just like, no, that's game studio number 1,
right?
And then game studio number 2 is making, and you're just like, you guys, that's not, it's not cool.
For sure. Then the next one that's really exciting to me is Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection. This is a combination of games from the past, all very, very nostalgic for me. I mean, obviously, the two that are most nostalgic are Marvel vs. Capcom and Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
But haven't those been re-released on other platforms?
Not MVC2 has not. And that's been kind of a point of contention. There was a PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 port of those games. That was the last time that they were released with really shoddy netcode. They are going to roll out rollback netcode for Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And presumably the rest of the games in this collection, which is a really interesting prospect for fighting game fans. I mean, obviously Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is one of the greatest fighting games ever made. And so the idea of being able to play it with really sound netcode is kind of a revitalization of the scene that has never really died. There are still people playing it. And actually, this Evo that's taking place in a couple of weeks, they're main staging Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Oh, wow.
Because, you know, people love that game and it's pretty hype, even though it's fucking broken in a lot of ways.
But you're not going to play this on the Switch, right? This is going to PlayStation and PC as well.
Yeah, it's going to PlayStation 4, so no PlayStation 5 port, which is odd.
Okay.
And Switch and PC.
No Xbox.
No Xbox. Yeah, which pissed people off, apparently. I don't know if I'm going to play it on the PC because I don't think that there's going to be ultra wide support for it. I'm just going to guess it would be very difficult to implement that with an older set of titles. So I'll probably get this on PS5 and you know, mess around with it. I mean, it's Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is not my favorite fighting game of all time.
It's not on PS5 though.
It's not on PS5, but I mean, it's a PS4 game, so you can play it on PS5. Sure. It'll run fine on PS5. So, yeah, so that one's really interesting to me. I think that that's a great idea, you know, and I hope that, you know, people like myself that are fans of these fighting games, have a lot of nostalgia for them, will buy this because that's only going to embolden Capcom to work with Disney to get another Marvel vs. Capcom that we desperately need. You know, Infinite was a fucking unmitigated disaster, and people are really unhappy with that thing. So much so that there is like a really robust modding effort going on with that game, with a couple of prominent people in FGC that are working on it pretty tirelessly to kind of make it better. But that's, you know, we just need a new Marvel vs. Capcom, and they need to work that out. I mean, the big thing with Infinite was there wasn't X-Men characters because of licensing and all that bullshit. So they got to figure that all out and release a new title in the series. So those are the ones that really stuck out to me. There's a new Mario Party. I don't care about Mario Party at all. It's not my fucking jam. I probably will buy it just for collecting sakes, but yeah. I know it's weird, Nick.
Just line up Mario parties over there. Unopened Mario parties.
That I really do have like 2 copies of Mario Party that are unopened because I like, in theory it's cool, but then there's just mechanics that just suck about those games that like undercut the experience. The weirdest one is probably Lego Horizon, which was shown off at Sony's thing. But it's coming to the Switch, which is a weird kind of collaboration. I have zero interest in it. I will not play it. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, there's no way.
But
it is interesting. There are no rules anymore. And I think it's going to keep what we've seen happen with games showing up on everyone's consoles. That is going to be the law of the land within a few years. Sure. I think it's going to be weirder when they don't.
Right.
And I'm going to say like across the fucking board.
Yeah.
Which is probably a good thing. Yeah, I don't really. I'm not one to be over there and care about the console exclusives.
No, I don't care. I think that's a pretty childish way of thinking, and like we need to fundamentally shift away from that way of thinking because that's just the reality of the future.
I want to know what you need to do to make enough money so you can spend $250 million and build a good game. And in order to do that, like, you got to put it out everywhere. I think that's what Spider-Man's budget was or something.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Well, it was more than that. It was like 400 million.
And it just gets to a point where it's just like, yeah, you're not going to get it out of one console. You need to get that thing out there. It's crazy. There's no longer like, there's too many people that are playing to think that like Microsoft's going to pay you for the exclusive rights.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just, I think they're just straight up out of the business of doing that, period. Anyway.
For sure. One last one that's kind of interesting, but also like with a big asterisk is Fantasian is coming to, they're getting a Switch port for that.
Okay.
That's the mobile Hironobu Sakaguchi game, Mistwalker Studio.
I played it. I briefly talked about it on this podcast. That's cool. It's the combat system is interesting.
I never played it because I refuse to play cell phone games. But I do like the like little dioramas, environments. I think that's really cool. So I will definitely buy this game and play it on a Switch.
It's a really cool thing to see. And the combat system, like I said, you kind of can arc it and hit multiple enemies. Like there was something there. I did not stick with it because, again, like I was on iPad,
Yeah.
Just like,
hopefully they add some features to it and make it a little bit more robust for a console release.
One of the wildest things you can do in that game is it has random encounters.
Yeah.
But you could just say nah, and it banks it.
Okay.
It banks the random encounter, and you can get like 40, 50, right?
Yeah. And then just do them all.
And then you can just go to town and be like. Tuesday, random encounter day. Let's do it. Like
that's pretty smart.
And you could go do it. And it's really, I don't remember. There might've been other hooks as far as if there's a reason to do that, but you can absolutely, if you just want to go play the game and don't want to be distracted. And I agree. It kind of is smart where it's like, yeah, maybe I'm trying to do, I don't think this game had a lot of side quests, but like you could understand how that would be a neat mechanic. And it's just kind of funny that you're just going to like, what are you doing tonight? Killing mobs over and over again.
Yeah. That's very interesting. And, I'm pretty sure that Hironobu Sakaguchi said that he was not going to do any more games. Obviously, Mistwalker is going to exist still, but he's essentially retiring.
Sure.
And this is not new news. Like this was a while ago, like around the time of the release of Fantasian. So
surfing in Hawaii for 15 years. So.
Yeah. So that's kind of flies in the face of like Japanese culture. And like, I'm just going to do this until I die. Like look at Yuji Horii, for instance, with Dragon Quest. Like that dude's old as shit. Well, he's pretty old and he's still like, he was on this Nintendo Direct in a goofy ass shirt being like, I'm old as shit and I'm Yuji Horii, but here's Dragon Quest. So yeah, like, I mean, it's part of history and it's good to see this game getting a proper console port.
I mean, on the topic of that guy, he made the last story for the Wii. That game's awesome.
Yeah.
I highly doubt it would ever get re-released. I don't think it ever was big enough, but had a great story. And Lost Odyssey is a dope-ass game that went to the Xbox 360.
Didn't Sakaguchi do Blue Dragon as well?
Yes, he did. Gotcha. And I didn't play Blue Dragon. I played Lost Odyssey, and Lost Odyssey is a Final Fantasy IX like game, and I thoroughly enjoyed that game. It was really cool.
So, I mean, in its totality, I think it was a pretty good show.
Sure.
Maybe not as strong as Microsoft's showing, but definitely second. And in my opinion, probably a close second to Microsoft, just because there is a lot of question marks with Microsoft's show, and Nintendo, they're not really known for showing you things that are not coming out fairly soon.
Yeah.
Right. So, overall pretty happy with that. And we'll see what happens with Magic Magnet Switch 2.
Yeah. Hopefully, I don't think we're going to hear about it this year, maybe February or something.
They said that they would announce it before the end of the fiscal year is over.
But that allows that what is the fiscal year?
The fiscal year, I believe, is like March of next year. So that they got a lot of time.
Exactly when they always announce their
right,
shit. Just go back and look at the month they released all the previous consoles. It's going to be the fucking
that's
February,
all we
March
have. Yeah.
Is what we're going to see.
Well, I mean, yeah, hopefully internally, we've talked about it. The hardware is ready to go, supposedly, if you can believe leaks. And so hopefully the development of the games that are going to come out is going along well. So
I would think so, because they did not announce that there's a Fire Emblem remake in the hatch that's rumored. So you've got like potentially sequel to Odyssey or whatever that looks like, a Metroid, that, and then you can tease a Xenoblade, which I wouldn't expect it to be ready. I'd probably think it's the next year, but that's probably like you show up and you show a new console. That all speaks to me, and then you fill it in with all whatever the fucking gimmick is of this next thing, which I'm sure will be great. I'm sure I'm going to love it.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, we have just been
out of the park playing a fucking Switch.
Yeah. A non-LED Switch, which that one, or OLED. That's really disappointing to me. But I mean, it's been so long that we've been like, please, Nintendo, please, will you please release a new system so that these games that are actually good run well.
This went pretty long. We'll take a little break, and then we'll come in. We'll talk about some more Destiny, some Alan Wake, and all kinds of stuff. All right, we are back. We from what I can tell, at the end of the last show, we ended the show. You said, "See you later, Nick." You took 2 weeks off. You started playing Destiny. And you stopped playing a few hours ago, and you came back to this room to tell me about your 14 straight days of playing. What's going on over there?
Dude,
what happened to you?
I don't know. I'm fucking hopelessly addicted to Destiny again. I can't stop. And I think that I am just coming to the realization that like I should have never stopped playing Destiny, and this should have just been like an ongoing conversation when new, you would
have ran out of stuff to do.
Yeah,
I'm of the where I am at is we never should have stopped playing it for 2 to 3 months a year.
Yeah,
that's the big problem.
I guess that's probably true. I mean, there's certainly going to be a time where I will get to the end of all of the content, and then probably be like, okay, this is time to put this down. But I am certainly not close to that, Nick. Just because of the layoff for us playing that, the Final Shape is a fantastic expansion. It is incredible. And there is a lot to do. There's a lot to see, and a lot to grind for. And so that has kept me going. But I just have 3 other expansions
an
unlimited
amount of quests. Like you sign in. Like I played it, I maybe played 7-8 hours since the last one, but a couple of days I signed in and I was like, I do want to keep chipping away at the Witch Queen main quest because I never finished it.
It's good.
So I did a couple of those and had a good time. And it's really this, it's a nice feeling that I have this good body of work, essentially, that's just there, and I can go and dabble and dip and do whatever I want to do to engage with it. And generally I keep getting drawn to the new stuff because that's the best way to kind of push your power level, stuff like that. But
yeah, for sure. But there's this is the thing, the loot pools are a big thing, right? Like there are so many good weapons and armor that you have to unlock once to get it into your loot pool, and that is very important.
That's the reason I just get no hesitation every time a gun drops.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, getting that loot pool bumped up is important. But yeah, I really have had no complaints with the final shape, and like I'm deep into the final shape,
Yep.
To the point where I have pretty much done everything aside from the raid.
How's your season pass looking?
I am 2 levels away from 100, so I'm about done.
So I don't remember exactly. I'm over 50. I don't know if I'm to 60 yet. So
Yeah.
I mean, even at my time, I've been like, hey, this has been pretty fine. Most of the stuff is, I haven't gotten to where you start to get a few exotics. I don't know if any of those exotics within the season pass are any good.
They're mostly randomized. So there's the Red Death Reformed. You get that?
I do have that one.
Yeah, if you're a paid season pass person, you get that level 1. That's a fantastic little. I think it's a pulse rifle, right? It's really good.
I hate those though, but yeah,
I love them.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Fucking, you remember last night where you were like, did you just clear everything out? That's the Graviton Lance, baby. Which, I mean, that's a vanilla weapon, but it's super meta and very, very good because of its ad clearing ability like that. But yeah, super deep into the final shape. And I think that that loop is fantastic between the overthrows, which are pretty compelling because, it's broken up into 3 different areas. And in those individual areas, there is where I'm at, I've seen everything that the overthrows have to offer. But if you do an individual overthrow, like, you're not going to see everything that is available as far as like the mini events per overthrow, which that's good. That's a good thing.
It's kind of, and I'm sure I'm wrong because we've come here a couple years late, but that Pale Heart and the overthrow mechanics feels like them trying to do something different from like the patrols and the random encounter things that occur on all that's been going on in Destiny for a long time.
Yeah.
And it seems like that was them saying, well, what if we have this different type of mechanic? And I don't believe I think all of the previous main worlds kind of had that, but this one's not a multiplayer world either.
Well, it can be.
You can bring friends in, but you won't see randoms.
No, you can. You can launch a cooperative overthrow.
But you have to pick. But you have to choose to do that.
Okay. Yeah, you just pick. There's an icon on the map. You just click it, and then it will matchmake you, which is cool.
I probably should have fucking done that.
Well, yeah, they're nice because they have a potential to give you a deep sight weapon each time you finish one. And the regular ones do too. But it seems like it's a little bit more in your favor to do the harder, cooperative overthrows for better rewards. And really the name of the game with the deep sighting is, unlocking guns that you want to god roll very easily. So like, for instance, the call that we were using last night, I've god rolled that. And then also the rifle, no hesitation, I believe that heals. It's like healing. Yeah. I've god rolled that as well. So it's very compelling and exciting to kind of progress through that. Right. You have to, I think it's 4 or 5 red border deep sight weapons that you have to get, and then you have to deep sight them to get them unlocked in the Forge on Mars.
Got it. And that's one of the previous DLCs.
That's from the Witch Queen. Yeah. But that is hugely compelling. Not everything is deep sightable, except when you have a deep sight harmonizer, which those are all, for the most part, unlocked in the battle pass. And those are hugely important because you can also deep sight a exotic weapon. You also have to have spoils of war to do that, which you get from raids. But the potential for god rolling like an exotic is very, very compelling, and switching up some of those. I don't know if every single exotic is available to be deep sighted, but there certainly are some that are. And so that's a really cool thing.
If you are not invested in Destiny, we are speaking a foreign language over here, sure. Because there's 10 years of bloat in this thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's compelling bloat, but still bloat. And it's kind of crazy how much fucking shit there is and how many different systems, because you're talking about how great it is that you take these other guns in a new expansion to the previous expansion's hook to essentially make it better. And it really gets really complicated.
It does. I mean, I have put close to 90 hours in the last 2 weeks, and I'm still on certain things. I'm certainly more competent, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I understand this. But there are still a couple of things where I'm like, I don't fully understand this,
Sure.
and it's required me to kind of look into it and do research to really fully grasp it. But what can I say, man? It's a lot of fun. It's a really, really fucking good time playing this game in 2024. Bungie deserves a lot of credit. There was a lot of questions of whether or not they would be able to pull it off after Lightfall and some of the other blunders that they've had. But I think generally speaking, most people are pretty into this expansion.
I mean, this is going to be a big test, and we'll find out in a week, a month, 6 months. There will be a report about what the powers that be at Sony, what they gauged it, what they thought they were going to do, and how it did. And if it comes out that they are disappointed, it's fucking over. Like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, because it's not, it sounds like shitty or kind of like whining, but that's not fair. Like, this thing's incredible. Yeah. And if it comes out that they're just like, yeah, still not enough, then the model just can't work, and that's super disappointing because what they're doing is extraordinarily compelling.
Yeah, I mean, some of this stuff is still gross to me. Like there is appearance customization now. Transmog is what it's called.
To spend some money.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to spend money, but they kind of gate you in terms of what you can do in a given season. So you can only transmog. Well, you can only do the bounties that give you the ability to like pick whatever you want your appearance to be 10 times in a season, right? And I think that's fucking gross. That sucks. But I also understand that like
it's not two. I mean, that's a few times.
Yeah. No, you can definitely unlock a good amount of, because you get 100 stacks of the material that then you go to the weave and deposit, and then that gives you stacks of whatever the material is to transmog. So I mean, you can unlock a good amount of stuff in a season, but like I don't know, having like an arbitrary number kind of gating you on that kind of sucks, but it is what it is. That's one thing that's kind of gross. And then I think Eververse just sucks in general. Like you don't really get silver for anything. Like there should be which is like the paid currency in the game. There should be at least like trickle a little bit of silver over my way for the amount that I've invested, and you just don't get that, right?
I agree. I'm surprised when games don't do it. Like it doesn't matter how tiny it is,
right?
Like Overwatch, like the original Overwatch model worked, where it was like, you can go and buy all this stuff, or you slowly get stuff to go get your skins. Like that was always a compelling thing that we did. We knew when the events were coming, you would save up that thing, and Destiny really should do that too. So people are like, oh yeah, there's gonna be new shit coming out. I saved up this much of the Destiny bucks.
I agree with that. But those are pretty small criticisms, like overall, especially if you're invested. And like, I don't have a problem paying for a battle pass.
No,
I'm going to be curious because they've broken up this season into 3 episodes, and we're in episode 1 right now. So
what happens to the battle pass?
So what's the pricing for episode 2? Because it's definitely, you got to pay for it. If it's like $10 to $14, I'm okay.
I was going to say 20. But I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just pulling a random number out of my ass.
Yeah. But if it's like $30 to $40, that's a little bit of a harder pill to swallow. The next chapter unlocks in, I think, like a month.
Okay.
So yeah. And I'm also interested to see kind of how things are going to function once I get to 100. Like the final reward is an ornament for the Red Death Reformed, which is sweet. And then, you get a bonus to Eververse drops, like the prism, or not the prismatic, but the Eververse engrams. So that could be cool. Every single time I get one of those engrams, I'm like, I might get something cool. And then it's like, I got a green ship.
I was just gonna say,
and it's like, that sucks, dude. Like, I actually did get an exotic emote today. And it's Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay, all right.
But that was the first like exotic anything that I got from those Eververse engrams. So it doesn't feel good when you're like,
sure.
they've gated it in a way that it's like every probably 10 to 15 levels you get one of those, and then it's like, I got a sparrow that's objectively worse than the sparrow that I'm using. So
I never see any difference in them. It's just like, whatever, it's fine. I want the surfboard. I don't have the surfboard, and that's really all I care about.
God, that fucking surfboard's dope.
It's so
they
fucking
do, like, there's like mechanics that you do like nightfalls and shit with people that have it, and they can boost themselves up in the air by doing like kick flips and shit on it. And I'm over here on the ground on my shitty sparrow, and they're just like fucking 50 feet in the air. Flying, man.
It's fucking very, very funny. But let's talk a little bit. You reached out to me a week ago, and you're like, "Hey, there's an exotic quest. This is all kind of post game content a little bit."
Yeah.
And Destiny does these really well. We've done some in the past and really had a good time. We've done some recently in the past, and years ago we did some that were like, these are really compelling, like handcrafted experiences. So. You're like, this is dual Destiny. You've got to do a little bit. It'll take you like an hour to get it ready, is what you told me. You promised. And so I went.
I didn't promise you.
And you said it's in writing, probably. I'll
It's not in writing. What? That's a weird thing. Hey, Nick, it's going to take you an hour. I promise. That's not how we interact with one another.
It happened. So anyway, you just have to complete the overthrows in order, and then like an extra witch spawns and you kill the witch, right? I sit down, I'm like, I gotta get this done earlier this week. I think it was on Tuesday or something. I did the first overthrow, no fucking witch. I had all the resources open. Here's where the witch is. Multiple sites because it wasn't there. It fucking didn't pop in the first one. And I'm like, all right. And in my head, the gears are going because Destiny's weird. And like, you told me you have to do them in order, but I'm like, I've done this overthrow a lot. There is a chance that I had killed this witch previously. Mm-hmm. That's what's going on in my head. I'm like, all right. So I go to the second one and I kill it. And then I got pulled away. So I didn't even get to the third one. So then I came back a few days later and I'm like, well, I'm going to start the second one, which was probably a mistake. I did the second one. I did the third one. The thing didn't pop. You go back to the second one. I think it's the blooming. And you're supposed to have this green light shooting up. You go find it. It didn't pop. And I'm like, fuck. And I went and I redid the whole fucking thing again. And then it finally did work. 1, 2, 3, as advertised. Do them in order. I was just very confused, and I did a lot of them, and it took a long time, but we got it. So
so you did have to do it in order.
Yep, I did.
You were fucking pushing back pretty hard on me.
I don't even know if I'm wrong because people on the internet are like, you don't have to do it in order. I did it this way. So I'm like, well, fucking Dick Liquor 69 says you can do it like this. So I don't know.
Yeah, but the thing about it is it's the internet, man. Like, and
why would they lie?
Oh my God. God damn it. I fucking told you this is the way I did it, right?
Yes.
Left to right on the Pale Heart map.
That's what I was going to do. And then as soon as it didn't pop, then my mind just gets turning. And I'm like, well, maybe there's other ways to get this thing done. And that's basically what led us to this point. It took a long time. I got it all ready. Got it all done. We came in Friday and I'm like, I know how Jared rolls. I know how long these things take. So I was like, I told you, I'm in my comfy pants. I have my bottle of whiskey next to me, so I don't have to go anywhere. I'm ready. I actually hardly drank anything last night because it was a difficult experience.
Me either, yeah.
And I was distracted. Like at the end of the night, I was like, I don't even know if I had 2 ounces of. I didn't even finish like the 1 glass of whiskey.
I had 2 drinks while we played this
because this is a kind of a unique experience. It was called Dual Destiny, and it's a 2-man group. It has to be 2 people. It plays on the light and dark.
No matchmaking, by the way, which has been a point of contention.
Oh, fuck. Can you imagine?
People are so angry. Well, yeah, I can't imagine matchmaking. I would not want to do that. But there are like certain subset of people that are like, I do everything solo, and I don't want to fucking have to do this with a person. And so that's been a point of contention. I think like
You can't do everything solo in Destiny, though. What are you talking about? There's things all the time.
Depends on how good you are.
The bullshit. You cannot do there are raids you cannot do solo.
There are raids that people solo though.
But some of them are impossible to because of the mechanics within the game. You literally cannot do it. Anyway, this thing we went in blind. We at least with the best intentions of we're like, hey, we're gonna try to figure it out. And on paper, this is like nothing. This is the exact thing that you don't like. Yeah, I've been talking about games with you for a long time, and this is a puzzle game. You have all the great mechanics of Destiny, but this is a puzzle that you have to figure out as far as mechanics and cooperation, and it's something I like quite a bit. I do enjoy the law, the repetitive nature of trying to figure out, beat your head against these. All right, what glyph? Like it's like glyph. A lot of it's like glyph based, and it's like I can see this. I have to be the one that shoots the glyphs. We call it out. A lot of dog bottom shit from the it's a throwback to the older expansion, but we slowly worked through this, and I gotta say we absolutely struggled. We didn't finish it, so we'll get to there. But there's a lot of different encounters, and at first I was just like, I just don't know, like we're really having a hard time. But every time you wipe, there are no checkpoints. You have to restart the whole fucking thing again. We really, I think it was really satisfying that we got to a point where it was like these ones we really struggled with, that we pretty much got those dialed in.
Yeah.
And we probably finished those within 30 seconds of the same time almost every time.
Sure.
And that was a good feeling. It would have been better if we finished it. We got to the end, and there were some a few mechanics, and we were a little short on time, and we weren't able. But we got to the final boss encounter. We got the final bosses down to like 50 or 25%.
25.
But there are.
We got to the last puzzle before it's just damage phase, and then the thing's over.
The problem is the last puzzle, we knew kind of what it was going to be because it was a kind of a reused puzzle from previously. It's this clock thing where you're calling out the times, but it kind of ramps up the difficulty and how fast it goes. And I still need to watch it be done before we try it again. We're going to get it done. But
definitely going to get it done.
But that one is tough. It's actually really amusing because it's this mechanic where there's essentially like 9 nodes, and you're calling out which ones you have highlighted and which ones he has highlighted. And the way we did it is ass backwards of the easiest way to do it. But it was such a fucking complicated, it's not math, but in your mind, you're computing. I'm computing something in my head that Jared's telling me.
That Jared's incapable of doing in his head.
But I can't play the game.
Yeah.
So when we finally got it done, because I had to do it 3 times in a row, I wish we just had it record what I was doing, because I was at the back of the map, jumping and floating back and forth. I wasn't even shooting because in my head, I was like boom, 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 and going through. And then it was like Eureka. And I'm like, I got to shoot 137. Okay. 137. Okay. I can go back to it. But I cannot play that game and do it the way we were doing. I think you have looked online a little bit, and you might have a better process for us to get there.
Yeah.
But the way we got there was extremely difficult. Like even the one we got done, there was a moment where both of us were just like, we're not going to get I can't get this done. Like we cannot do it.
Yeah, definitely really challenging. So let's go back and talk about some of the earlier mechanics before the time or the clock mechanic. Largely, this revolves around this glyph system. And, one thing that I really don't like, really don't like it, is, and it's largely mitigated with experience, I will say that. But there are 30 glyphs, not 10, not 15, there are 30 of them, or 28. So, okay. And 28 glyphs that will appear at random in the first 3 encounters in this mini raid, I guess, or 2-man raid. And when you're trying to, the mechanic works as like this, right? Both of us are aligned to a different color, so light and dark. during these phases of this encounter, one person is going to be calling out glyphs and the other person is going to be shooting these glyphs, right? And the glyphs are randomized
during huge fights,
massive fights where there are like unrelenting amounts of enemies. It never stops. No. It's just you kill the mobs of enemies, the ads die, and then more ads spawn. So you have to kind of manage the combat of Destiny and then also kind of compartmentalize all of these different things that are going on with the glyphs. So one person's calling the glyphs, the other person is going to shoot those glyphs. You have to do it in a specific order, which was the first thing, except for the first encounter. I don't think that you have to do it in order, but
you do. But we just lucked out. There's only 2.
Yeah.
So we just got lucky.
Got you. I guess 50-50. I mean, that's easy. But 2 and 3 in particular, 2 requires you to shoot 3 glyphs, and then 3 requires you to shoot 4 glyphs, right? And you alternate. So I'm calling out glyphs to Nick, he's shooting them, and then vice versa. And yes, in theory, once you kind of get your mind around what you have to do, like you said, we got through it very quickly and we got it down. It took us a lot of trial and error to figure it out.
It was also figuring out the map, figuring out your safe, not safe, but your best place to hang out.
Yes.
And do the battle.
Right.
Because there are some very bad places to hang out.
Yeah.
And for the first 15 tries, it was like a struggle. And then you finally find your little corner and you're like, okay, this is manageable. I can deal.
Right. Yeah, no, it's fairly challenging, but that's absolutely a part of it as well, as there are some areas that you're a little bit safer. And yeah, it's rinse and repeat. You know, one big, heavy health bar enemy is going to show up for both of us. You cannot do damage. Like Nick has one, I have one, and we cannot do damage to our individual, heavy health bar enemy. So it's our responsibility to take them out, which adds a layer of difficulty. I mean, our damage was fine. I think like we didn't really run into like a damage check where we're not doing enough damage.
I think that my power level's low. So on the time, like how much time we have at the very end, we definitely could have benefited by probably me putting out more DPS on some of these bosses just to try to bring that down.
Well, I worked on that today, Nick, and I got a new exotic that is. So Still Hunt is the one that we both have, which is a sniper rifle that seems like community wise is instrumental in like some of the first teams beating the new raid. But there is also another exotic that you have to go through cooperative mode with, and you got to beat a bunch of missions, which are very challenging and introduce the exact same shit that we were talking about right now. Yeah. Just so you know. I naively was like, hey, if we finish Dual Destiny pretty quickly, we should do some of these because they're pretty cool. And they are pretty cool, but they're extremely challenging. But you got to do 3 of them. I did that today with randoms. And boy, that was a fun time, I'll tell you. But I did it. And
talking.
No, just through chat. Through the game client chat. It was a lot. It took a long time to do 3 of them today. But I got a exotic that's a heavy and it absolutely shreds through the tormentors like real fucking fast.
That would be nice for sure.
Yeah. So, and I was doing that because I read and everybody was like, if you're going to do Dual Destiny, like this is the exotic to have because it's just going to fucking shit all over the tormentors, which makes it a lot easier. And the individual heavy enemies that we've got to take out because it does enhance damage to shielded elites. So if they have got a shield, it just melts them. So it's really good. Had a lot of fun after I got it today. I was like, this thing's fucking incredible. But it's just a lot to kind of with the glyph system is just very, very, so they're essentially little images that pop up that you have to call out to your teammate and then that teammate shoots them. But because there's so many of them, there is like this initial phase of understanding and learning each individual one. And we didn't even see all of them. It seems like they're not,
there's no way they're all in the pool. There's just no way.
There's no way they're all in the pool.
But you definitely, like some of them were easy to memorize for whatever reason. It's kind of it's something that should be studied, because some absolutely you're just like, that's Fleet. And as soon as I knew what Fleet looked like, I remembered it.
Yeah.
But others, and there's some with like whenever there's a person, an image of a person, because there's too many, those are the ones I have a hard time with. Like there's one, it's called Drink, and it's like this guy with water coming out of his head. But every time I could never remember it. I'm just like, it's the waterhead guy. It's the one with water. Like it's,
yeah.
And you like have it up on another screen, but then you're in like these tense battles and you're trying to look at your phone and it has 30 glyphs on it. And you're trying to find this glyph to see the name of it so you can tell Jared. Or you're just like, it's the small triangle with red, and there's a squigger. Do you see the squiggly? And he's like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. There's a...
Yeah, they have like specific names like Ascendant Plane, Black Garden, Black Heart, Commune, Darkness, Drink, Earth. There was one in particular.
Earth is an easy one.
Earth is an easy one. So Tower was one that it looks like a plunger on a dynamite, like the old timey like setups that you would plunge exactly. Style, and instead of calling it Tower, we were just like plunger.
Like all
fucking shoot plunger.
I never knew there was one with red hands, and I'm like, bloody upside down hands. I don't know. Like, fucking, do you see bloody upside down hands? Shoot them.
Yeah.
And so like you do that. There's 3 different rooms that you have to go through, and it's difficult. We've got it down. We can nail it, and we can get through it in a quick time. And then there's some platforming,
right?
Which is easy enough, generally speaking.
Once you know what to do, it's easy.
Takes a little bit. I think this is tough because we did end up using the internet to help us out when we got stumped. Yeah. But I really do think the right way to approach it is how we did it. And like, you need to try to do it yourself.
Yeah.
You need to fail a little bit yourself. It is frustrating that you have to redo the whole thing. There's no checkpoints. I'll say, I wish there was some checkpoints.
One
somewhere within
just
it.
One.
That would help. But it is nice. Kind of figuring out some of these things and being like, oh, this is happening. Because that's like a lot of work goes into these things. And that's the whole point of it, is working together and trying to do it. And we've slowly worked through. I don't know if we need to talk about the platforming ones too much. We figured them out. They're fun. I always like the platforming puzzles in Destiny. They're tricky. They're hard. And they are generally, you can accomplish them with a little bit of work.
Yeah.
Then it gets to the clock puzzle.
The clock puzzle is a fucking pain in the ass.
The first clock puzzle is the one that we referenced earlier, where you've just got those. It looks like a clock, but it's not a full clock, and that's what led us astray. And still, the internet, I don't know what they're thinking. Like, don't call it a clock. There's only 9.
Well, to be fair, the boss fight, it is a full clock.
It is,
yeah.
But the first room we did, it was 9, and we were failing because we were treating it like literally a 12-point clock, and there were only 9 quarter, coming under the bottom portion of it. And then we were shooting the wrong ones.
Right.
So once we kind of figured that out and kind of worked through how to fucking figure out what to shoot, we got through that one, got to the final boss. And then that's the one where that's a motherfucker. And we were not able to do the final clock puzzle, which I think we only have to do that. And then maybe we have to do that once or twice.
3 times. So you have to do it 3 times, but and it's incredibly fast. So the first encounter with this kind of pseudo clock, the glyphs that you need to shoot are going to be lit up. We did it opposite though. So I swear to you, the guide that I was reading said you have to shoot what glyph is not lit up for the opposing player, but that's not the way it works. You got to shoot the same glyphs that are lit up for both players.
Yeah.
And so we like, you were doing like mental gymnastics in the corner while I was doing ad clear.
Literally, it's just, sorry, say what you say again. We shoot the glyph that's only lit up for one player.
No, we shoot the same glyphs that are lit up for both of us.
Okay. So yes. So what it was is the way we asked backward this thing is Jared told me what wasn't lit up. 137. And then in my head, I know what isn't lit up.
Right.
248. Those 6 numbers, I shoot whatever I didn't just say. And so in my head, I'm lining up these numbers. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 4, 5, 9. Shoot 4, 5, 9. And I'm like, and like the mental gymnastics was painful. fucking painful.
Yeah. So a couple of things to make that a little bit easier. So what I watched a bunch of videos this morning when I woke up. A couple of people will immediately just in the chat, they will list the nodes that are lit up, and then the person that has the buff, because you have to take out a tormentor to get a buff to actually shoot the nodes. That person will just apply, okay, I have this same node that he listed. I shoot these 3, right? And that's how you do it. Another one that I think
then I just list the nodes that match.
Correct.
So you list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm like 2, 5.
Exactly.
Done.
Yes.
Makes
exactly.
sense.
Well, there's 3 of them. So yeah, it would be three nodes that correspond. So that's one option to do it. Another option to do it is person that gets the buff stands and in the middle, and the person that doesn't have the buff actually shoots the nodes that are lit up for them, because it doesn't do anything to the nodes. And so you can see the bullets going to the nodes. And once you have a corresponding node that's lit up, you shoot those ones.
That's not a bad idea.
No, it's really smart. So I think we can get through that pretty, now that we exactly know what to do, we can get through that. The boss fight clock is a full 12-point clock. It's a clock. The thing that is more difficult about it is it alternates between 3 different sequences, right? So the way that people have been figuring this one out is either having Discord up and screen sharing. So whoever decides to be the shooter is watching the screen of the other person
on a separate.
Exactly. Sure. And then associating that. It doesn't really work for us because we've got big screens and don't have multiple monitors hooked up to our PCs.
Yeah, I don't do it anymore. Unless I come out here. I mean, I could come out here.
Right. But it seems like it's doable because it's the same principle. I think that the text chat is going to be the easiest way to do that, where we just call out the sequences, because it alternates in 3s. So there's 3 different alternations, right? So it'll flash 1, flash 2, flash 3. So all we need to do is be able to type out the sequence that it goes, and then we associate the 2 or the 3 that are matching up. But here's the kicker with this. It's you shoot 1 and then a wave of ads spawn, right? And then you take out the ads and then you go to the next one. So you kill the ads, ad clear, then you shoot the next one in the sequence, ad clear, shoot the next one in the sequence, and then the bosses are just open to be destroyed. So we literally were so fucking close.
We never would have gotten it without some help, but
no,
because as soon as they were switching, I was like, this is too fast for our method. No way. It never would.
I think that's going to be the way that we're going to do it, is by typing in on that sequence. I think that the shooting sequence will probably work pretty well, because we were also panicking as well, because we were like,
we had a minute.
Yes, our overall time was very low, but then on top of that, I don't think that we were realizing that Tormentor buff lasts for 30 seconds. So like, yes, you have to deal with ad clear as well, which is difficult for sure. But also, if you just calm down and not panic, it's like, we've got 30 seconds to do this. Shoot the ones that you have lit up, and I just shoot the ones that you shoot, and we're good to go. Yeah. You do that 3 times, easy peasy. So I think that we definitely will get it down the next time we do it, for sure, because we've got those first 3 phases down pack, and the platforming section, we've got that down pack. And then there's like one arena environment, and that is very easy. So last night I was like, I knocked the Tormentor off, and you were like, no, that motherfucker's still here. I did knock the Tormentor off. There's 2 of them that spawn on that last platform.
Okay, right.
So so that's going to be kind of difficult because it's 2 Tormentors at once. But yeah, honestly, I will say, not my favorite kind of mechanics. I really hated it wasn't the first raid in Destiny 2, the original raid, Dog Bottom, that shit. Yeah. I hated that. I absolutely hated that. And granted, we played with randoms. We never had a full fire team. Probably would have been better. We got through it once, I believe, all the way through.
Only go.
No, we didn't.
I don't believe we ever finished it.
Okay.
I finished it.
I finished it as well. Maybe not together.
But I don't believe, because I could be wrong, But my last memory, I thought it was us playing with the children who are now no longer children. They're probably in college.
They're
and married,
fucking 18-year-olds.
They still
at
hate
least.
math, but they're
Yeah. That is a funny inside joke that we don't need to go into. The last thing that I want to, this is not new news for the Destiny community, but I just stumbled upon this today, in fact. And there's some pretty interesting things that I want to talk about Destiny and the future of Destiny. So right around the time that the final shape was not necessarily announced, but was like, it wasn't out yet. It was in the lead up to final shape. There was a random Redditor that came on to Reddit and said, hey, I fucking have inside information from Bungie. I know a number of people that work on the team. Obviously, I'm going to be anonymous about this, but here's a roadmap of what's going on with Destiny, right? And to kind of add some validity to this, he accurately predicted a bunch of things that were not announced, specifically Prismatic, the new class ability. He or subclass, he leaked that before it ever came out. And anyone knew about it. And
so he has some credibility.
Spot on, right. The thing that was most interesting about this discussion was Bungie has been working internally on Destiny 3 since 2022. And the code name for Destiny 3 is Project Payback. And to add more validity to this, he said that Sony's acquisition of Destiny or Bungie was directly correlated to Bungie pitching this to Sony and saying, this is where we're at. We're in pre-production on Destiny 3, this Project Payback, and these are what we want to do, which kind of makes sense for the outrageous amount of money that Sony paid. Almost $4 billion for Bungie, which is fucking insane for one studio. So he highlighted some things about it. In particular, like I said, pre-production started in 2022, right after the Witch Queen expansion launched. And the big hook that they had been rolling out or talking about was the fact that the big hook for the game was going to be no more classes. So they were going to have a pool of abilities, and you could basically tailor make your
just a big tree
perfect build without the Hunter, Titan, and Warlock being involved. Additionally, I've seen a lot of these leaks.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
I think, I'm sure there's people that are still getting all three of their classes up to speed, but that just seems, that's not, it's certainly not me. Maybe some people are all about it, but no. Also, I don't, you play one class so long, I don't like to play any of the other classes. I've only played Warlock. I've played 20 hours of a Hunter.
Hunter's a lot of fun.
Of a Titan, and I'm just like, no, it's all, I just want the one.
Yeah, that's fair. This dude really let loose and said a lot of things at this period of time. So that kind of lit up the community, right? There was also like even more to the point of kind of like validating some of this dude's statements is he was able to give a exact number of employees that were working at Bungie post layoffs, right? So he added on top of that, like after the fact, after the layoffs, he said, internally, Bungie's working on 3 projects.
Is just fucking HR over there, or what's going on?
I don't know. He must like fucking party, or he must be banging somebody at Bungie, which is kind of fucked up.
Sure. Like,
this is just the world we live in, though, and it's just the reality of the way that the world works. But so obviously, Marathon, he talked was like pretty deep in development, and that was the main focus between the teams internally at Bungie. Most of them were focusing on Final Shape and the future of Destiny 2, whatever that is, Frontiers, obviously, and Marathon, and then another unannounced Payback, and then another unannounced project called codename Project Bubblegum or some shit like that, which we have no idea what that is. But he said currently there are about 1,600 people working for Bungie after the layoffs.
God damn.
And so he was like, he broke down and did the math of like who could be working, and he basically said, largely the main focus is on Marathon right now, with another large portion of people at the studio working on Destiny 2, right? The remaining bulk of the studio is working on this project Bubblegum and Payback, right? So if you kind of do the math, like it doesn't, that's the only thing that I kind of have pause about, because like, I mean, some of these larger video games, like massive teams, right? So Destiny 3, if it's actually going to be a thing, has got to be very well
3 or 4
in 2022, very early on in its development.
It's still
like not even like vertical slice, not even close to that, just doing like pre-production stuff. But the fact that it really makes a lot of sense, the fact that fucking Sony paid that much money, there had to have been backdoor conversations being like,
what's
look,
the direction?
What's
have the vision here?
Yes, we have so much proof that we're making money on Destiny 2, and we've got a pretty good player base already. When we roll this out, this is $1 billion IP. Easy, right? So that checks out. That makes sense that you would pay, because like if you think about it, you got Destiny 2 and then Marathon. Those are the two things that Bungie publicly has, announced that they're working on actively. $4 billion does not make up for it. Doesn't make sense.
Sure.
So I think that there's a lot of validity to this. And, going back to our previous conversations where we were like, I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, you got to take it with a grain of salt. You never know. But the guy proved that he's got some sort of inside connection. And the only thing that you could say is like, was this, 2022 is when they pitched this, and like with the layoffs, they still have almost 2,000 people working for them. But like, was the amount that they laid off just like, we're canceling 3 and we're just going to go with 2 forever? I would love to see 3 come out.
I'd be extremely compelled to see 3, where they get to get rid of the bloat that we've talked about, where it's just like, you've layered so many things on here to keep people invested in everything. You've learned a ton. You're really good at what you're doing.
Yeah.
To go back to the ground floor and be able to say, here's our hub, here's this. And I just really think that they could do it right. Hopefully they do, but I think it could really be an experience that just doesn't feel quite as, I got to fly to this planet. Now I got to fly to this planet. Now I got to go to the fucking helmet. And it is, it is a problem. The way that this thing works right now, it is kind of just like, even yesterday, like we like linked up, you got in and we're already flying somewhere. You're like, where the fuck are we going? like the farm. I got shit to talk about over there. Like there's things we got to work through.
Can you even go to the farm anymore?
I don't think so, because they got rid of all of the red. All of that expansion.
Yeah,
is
the
gone.
Red Legion is gone.
That entire thing.
There were a couple other things that he added that I think are pretty notable. It just seems like he's got a pretty good insight and talking to somebody on the team. So Payback specifically is highlighting Bungie internally being like, we're finally going to do it. We're finally going to, pay back ourselves, not pay back to anybody else, but pay back to the team that has worked on Destiny 2 and finally visualize what we wanted to do for the long period of time. He highlights a couple of things. Forge mode was highlighted, where you could create your own maps. That's been a big thing that people in the community has wanted for a long time. I don't give a fuck about that, but that would be a cool thing.
Yeah.
Space combat. You got these ships, right? Like, how can we implement space combat into this whole thing?
It's kind of crazy that the orbit, the little image has never changed.
Yeah.
Like it's still the same. It's just been that.
It looks really nice.
Sure.
But yes, these kinds of things, like fully realizing what Destiny could be. And if you think about the original release of Destiny, that was a ambitious project, and leading up to it, I don't want to say it was No Man's Sky, but it was No Man's Sky-esque, where there was a lot of promises and a lot of things that people kind of envisioned, and Bungie explained that they wanted to happen with the game. And when the game came out, there was a lot of disappointment kind of surrounding what the game actually was. So, injection of cash from Sony, and the possibility of just like doing everything that they've kind of wanted to do. potentially is an
Goddamn.
interesting prospect. So,
Oh, wow. Long show. We're not done.
No.
Destiny's in a good place. So good for that. I am enjoying
I forgot
it.
about one thing. Warframe. We forgot about Warframe. You were like, last time we talked about it, you were like, yeah, there's only one game that's really been able to do it. You got to give credit to Warframe.
Sure.
They seem like they're doing fucking good.
And that game was not in a good place when it first launched. And they
people love that game.
Brought it back. Okay, so they kind of we knew that there was going to be Alan Wake DLC, but they stealth released it essentially.
Yeah.
And I already had it because I think I'd already purchased the deluxe or something. And I went into this with a really low bar. The Control DLC, there were three. I believe there were 3 DLCs, and the first 2 were not compelling, and the third one was good. So they have kind of a mixed history, and some of this stuff's just hard. It's just like with the style of game they make, DLCs are kind of hard, especially for a Remedy game. So I kind of went on arc on this. The first episode, you play as the waitress, if you remember her from
she's pretty great.
The diner.
Yeah,
she's got some things going on. She's obsessed with the writer, and she's like a huge fan. And
that was fleshed out in the base game.
And that is, and they really go. This is what this first one is, right? So she's in the diner, and this is all these are episodes of Night Springs. So presumably not canon, maybe canon.
Night Springs is like the
TV show, the
Twilight Zone. Yeah.
This first one definitely seems like not canon because it's very throwaway. But you're her at the diner, and then suddenly she gets this essentially message from the writer. And I step back. You're doing very cheesy things in the diner. The tone, totally different. Mm-hmm. And you're just like walking around giving people terrible advice. They're having coffee. And she's just like her ever positive self. And I'm like, all right, this is wild. And then it's like, I'm in trouble. I need your help. And she's like, time to go help my writer. And she goes back to her door and opens it up. And she's like, here's the room that helps. And it's just an armory in the back of the diner. And she walks in and there's just all these guns. And she's like, time to go help. And the voice actress, the best thing about this is the voice lines. And all 3 of these DLCs, I'll just say, the survival aspect's gone. Ammo is through the roof. You that's not the point of it. So she gets a couple rifles, and then she walks back out in the diner, and now all the people in the diner are standing and clapping, and they're like, "Woo! Go save the writer!" And you walk out into the street, and everyone's like cheering, and you're like walking towards the marina, and you're just like, "What in the fuck is this? Is this like someone's like side project? Like, what is happening?" And then essentially, it's like Alan Wake's brother type deal that is supposedly has abducted the writer. The story part of it, just throw it in the garbage. It's nothing, right? You're basically walking up to that mental house. That
I know what you're talking about.
Anyway,
yeah.
like that's
a pretty good sequence in the original game.
The journey is that you're getting up there, and there's some combat, and there's some very funny stuff. That's just like, you need to go to the beach. And then I posted it in our Discord, and there's a sign, and it's like, left, not the beach, right, the beach. You're like, okay, I'm gonna go that way. So the tone is like, what the fuck? And then when you reload your gun, there's 2 lines she says that I just couldn't get over. And it's just like, this gun is hungry. And then the other one is time for more bullets. And it's just like, click, click, click. And you're just like, did one guy just get to like, I don't know, like what? There's nothing here. Like, that's it. You go up there, you do a little combat thing. She ends up like, you get to the final room where he's like typing, and they like dance together. And she's like, I'm just like, you're not sane, but fine. And it finished, and I was like, it's like an hour. And I was like, I don't know, like, it's amusing. It made me laugh. Absolutely. It's not something I necessarily say anyone needs to go out and play. And I'm like, I don't know what these other ones are going to be, but I guess I got to check them out. The second one, you play as Jesse from Control, which immediately you're like, oh, here we go. Nope. This is going to be pre-Control. So all the fun combat, it's still not here. but you're in that amusement park, like Coffee World.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole thing is set. And this one has like a little more story. There's still some very quirky things happening here, and there's quite a few puzzles. And some of the puzzles were pretty good. Nothing too crazy, but they were. I thought they were pretty good. Again, this is about an hour, and then there's a really funny stealth sequence where, like, you meet the sheriff, and it's very quirky, and there's like these mascots dressed up in coffee mugs, and you're hiding from them. And they're like running around, and then they see you, and they're like, "Not coffee!" And they sprint at you, and you're just like, "Ah!"
I kind of love everything that you're saying right now.
It's just like they're like all the tone of it is like in the garbage, and then it's just like, "You're not ground," and they chase you around, and it's a and it's a dude dressed up as in a coffee cup, and you're like, "What the fuck is going on?"
My favorite aspect of Alan Wake 2 was the humor, right? Like the little commercials they did and things like that. That shit is so fucking good, and it sounds like they're just leaning into that.
Marlon Door, I mean, this is an episode Night Springs, and he starts every one of these episodes. He talks for a little bit. I really like that guy, but they. You get through that one. At the end, it's maybe a little compelling as just tiny little breadcrumbs about control. Maybe like there's some pretty interesting stuff. Like,
does the janitor show up at all?
Of course.
Okay, I love that character.
Not the actual character, his music.
Okay,
and
that's disappointing.
And
bring him in.
Well, he kind of comes in a little bit, but not really. So the third episode, he plays the sheriff. And if you remember, it's fucking Iceman from the original X-Men.
Yeah. Well, so, and he was also in that Remedy game, Quantum Theory.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, which they've said that this is the multiverse, right?
Right.
Like they have a whole thing.
Right.
So they basically
fucking Sam Link is a weird guy.
Third episode builds it all out. Builds out this guy and how he is in all these different planes. So that guy is in everyone's world.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like, you kind of feel that when you're playing the base game.
So so they fleshed that out, and the third one's actually pretty interesting. I'm glad I played through them. I don't know that they're worth $20 if you liked Alan Wake 2 a lot. Like it's fun and it's short, but so it plays through, and basically his whole stick here is Warlin Door is the master of worlds, and he is killing all his other versions in the different multiverses.
Yeah.
And so you have to go and it's very control-like. You get like essentially an object of power from that world, and you energize it, and then you move from world to world. You're moving through this, and you're like, this is kind of cool. This is like, I'm having a good time. It's not quite as funny. It's a little more serious.
Mm-hmm.
But then they double down. Instead of just moving to normal worlds, you move, and it goes into a side-scrolling 8-bit game where you're playing, and that's where like you see the janitor in that form, and you see Warlin Door in 8-bit, and you're like doing this terrible shooting game, and then you win that version, and then you go to the next multiverse, which is a text adventure, and then you do a text adventure, and then you go to another one, and then the next one was he had previously found a comic book like about him. And this one was a really well-drawn comic book. And it was super interesting. Like,
that sounds fucking awesome.
They have a lot of good ideas over there.
Yeah.
Like, and this is, again, it's an hour, so it's really easy to dip your toe in. And at the end of the day, like
3 hours total, right?
Yeah. Like narratively, there's no reason that you're like, oh, you got to play this to understand what's coming. Not really, but they've got some good ideas. And clearly, I think they use some of these things to kind of dip their toe in what is possible. Like you go to the Oceanfront Hotel, which was in Control a lot, and you just do a little bit of time there, and that's cool. Overall, where I started, I played the first one. I'm like, that was funny. Oh no, are they all going to be kind of this dumb? And then at the end, I was like, I'm glad I spent 3 hours doing that. Cool.
I think
combat still sucks.
Yeah. So one statement I have, and then a question. I think that I'm going to go back and play Control.
You should. It's great.
Yeah. Just from what I've seen of like I like elements of the storytelling in Alan Wake 2 a lot.
Yeah.
And you know, that tongue-in-cheek humor and all of that's very, very good. But the little bit that I did play of Control, I was like, oh, the gameplay is here. And like that was my big criticism of Alan Wake 2 is it's just kind of it's not clunky, it's just slow. And the combat is just not super compelling to me. And there's a lot of great sequences in the game, but like the game itself is not my favorite,
But
right?
the one thing that DLC has just entrenched in me now, I'm ready to move on from that combat.
Yeah,
Like, I'm a big fan of Alan Wake 2, but that combat is not it. And the control combat is. And you didn't even, I mean, I've talked about control on this show, so you know what happens.
But I didn't get
but
to the.
you get way better powers.
Yeah.
Like you really become a freak of nature in that game, and you're able to really destroy.
So my question is, between the 3 chapters, is there any sort of, you said there are some breadcrumbs that are kind of spread throughout, but do you get any sort of understanding of what maybe is the future for this series or for Remedy, like broadly?
Well, no, because I think what they did is really smart by bringing it all together and bring it all in house, like it's all one world.
Mm-hmm.
They're always just making a sequel to that world.
Yeah.
So whether it's I want it to be Control 2. That's what I want them, and their next game should be fucking Max Payne, or I think. But
yeah, isn't that announced already?
Yeah. But I want Control 2. That's what I want to see. But like, that's just I will be shocked if Alan Wake does not show up in some way in a Control 2. Right. Maybe in a limited extent, but they've just interweaved all this stuff. And they're creating this world that I'm fully invested in. Mm-hmm. And you fix that combat and you're just going to have me absolutely hooked.
Well, yeah, I was never a big fan of Max Payne. I played the first one and I think a little bit of the second one. And it never really appealed to me. I thought that was just super corny, but like the bullet time was novel and somewhat fun. I will say that. But the idea of them kind of interjecting this new kind of Remedy style onto Max Payne and then expanding on that bullet time in some interesting ways could be potentially really cool.
Well, because they're very good at like psychedelic mental gymnastic things.
Yeah.
And Max Payne had really bad ones. So he had dream sequences, and it was all based around his
drug addiction.
Well, his drug addiction with his murdered family.
Yeah.
But it was like you were running along these light lines, and you could fall off. It was really stupid.
And squinty Sam Lake face just killed me as well.
But for them to redo that and to make those compelling in what they've already done with all these other ones, you're just like, oh, those could be the star of the show, and they were the worst part of Max Payne.
Yeah.
So I really like Max Payne 1 and 2. I like 3 as well.
You really like them?
Yep.
3 was not Remedy though, right? That was
3 was Rockstar.
Well, Rockstar published all 3 of them, but
Take-Two published them, right? Take-Two's the publisher.
Yeah.
So Take-Two published them, not Rockstar
made them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rockstar made the third one.
Gotcha.
Rockstar didn't make 1 and 2.
Gotcha.
Take-Two published all of them. The third one just wasn't a Max Payne. It was great. It was a fun game. It's not a Max Payne game. Like Max Payne is New York, and there's like strong narrative about like what was happening. I really liked them. I thought the film noir one was good at the time. I mean, they're dated. That doesn't mean like if you go back today, you're gonna be like, this is amazing. But like no. I was I enjoyed, and like bullet time had only been introduced to us 3 years prior with The Matrix, so we were just like,
yeah, no, I mean, it definitely had a hook, and I mean, obviously, it performed well. People liked it a lot. My brother really loved it. My little brother, he fucking like. I played less of it and would just watch him play it, and he was just like obsessed with the fucking bullet time mechanics.
I had a nice Dell PC with a 15-inch LCD monitor. I was like in heaven.
Gotcha.
Like this is
your
it.
voodoo.
It was. I don't know. I don't think it was a voodoo. I don't remember. The voodoo would have been in high school, and I played Max Payne 2 in college, and I got that one from Dell.
Dude, you're fucking getting a Dell, man.
It was
what that guy's doing.
I spent weeks not Dell Shanzi.
No, you know what I'm talking about. The dude, you're getting a Dell guy. Man.
It was a good time. No, but I overall I ended up coming around on it. I think I'm glad they made it. I don't know that the price point is the price point. Some people are going to say, hey, that's not long enough, and that's fair. Sure.
What was the price point again?
$20.
$20 for like, I mean, it sounds like from what you explained to me, like it sounds like they didn't phone it in.
They didn't phone it in because like the humor's there. Like,
yeah, they had like a clear vision. They executed on that vision. So like, yeah. And it seems like people are pretty positive about it. I've seen some people that are like, that I respect quite a bit being like, this is not it. And probably maybe the way I would feel about it. But at the same time, like all the things that you just explained are absolutely my jam.
It was a nice palate cleanse off of what I'd been playing.
Yeah.
Which was like Destiny and Elden Ring, which, you know, spoilers for the next show, but that'll happen. But it was just like, well, this is the exact opposite of that. Cool. Let's absolutely do it. So I'm glad, right? But really, I just like, I'm a cheerleader for that studio. Tell me when you release the next game. So I'm very excited for it.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about what is Still Wakes the Deep? What is this thing?
Yeah, so Still Wakes the Deep. It's from the Chinese Room, which is a fun name for a studio. I don't know where they get that name from, but it's a British studio that is known for Dear Esther. If you ever played that, or they also worked on Amnesia. The what is it? World of Pig, not World of Pigs, but it was the follow up to Amnesia. So they put out some pretty well regarded games in the past. I kind of wish that it was World of Pigs. Amnesia, World of Pigs. But anyways, yeah, so this thing is a survival horror game, which I've talked a lot about survival horror. I like survival horror quite a bit. And yeah, this thing is really interesting, man.
Where are you playing it?
It's on Game Pass. So PC Game Pass. Game looks really nice. Fantastic, in my opinion. Runs really well on a good PC. And yeah, so the setting I think is the most interesting thing about this game. It takes place on a oil rig off the coast of Scotland, which I don't know anything about oil rigs, but I've learned a lot about oil rigs
lately.
Yeah.
Great.
And I just always thought, and I think that some of them are like, depending on the depth of the water, are actually like mounted into the ocean, like at the floor of the ocean. But also there are some that are on pontoons, which is terrifying. You know, so it's like filled with air and water to balance out this massive structure in these deeper parts of the ocean to drill down for oil. You're probably like, yeah, no shit, Jared. But like, I really had no idea.
Well, kind of randomly, my wife's cousin's husband, who I get along with really well, down in Texas, he does a lot of his company does repairs on all of these pipelines down into the ocean shore. So I actually know, I don't want to say a lot, but I've had hours long conversation about the logistics of some of this, and it is fascinating.
It's kind of terrifying as well. When you think that they're like, obviously there's a lot of safety measures and they stay in place, but also they're, essentially floating on the ocean, which is fucking terrifying. And if things go wrong, things can go really wrong.
They're pulling up oil, which is flammable. So
exactly, which there's a lot of that in this game.
Sure.
But yeah, so 1975 is when this game is set. So from an aesthetic standpoint, like they nailed it, right? You play as a character called Kaz, and Kaz's backstory is that he is from Glasgow, and he gets into a scuffle at a pub and beats a man half to death and puts him in the hospital. Kaz has a family, so he's got a wife and kids, and essentially the police in Glasgow are coming after him and are want to put him in jail for this crime that he committed. And it's not well explained, but I think I'm just going to say that it's his brother-in-law is a cook on this oil rig, and so in an attempt to kind of get Kaz away from this bad situation that he's in, he basically says, you're pretty good, like mechanic, like you're good with electricity. You're an electrician. At least a little bit about electricity and like working on these oil rigs. Come to the oil rig until the heat dies down, essentially. So that's where the game starts. Kaz is on this oil rig. You play as him. It's a first-person game, and you start out in his cabin, and everything about this, like the world building and the setting, like I said, they have done such a good job. You feel like you're in the 70s from like the decor and just the way that like everything functions on this oil rig. It's very dated, but it looks
like
great.
Record players or like
no, there's like radio, like old school radios yeah, exactly. And there's this kind of fight, like this conflict between this major oil company that you're working for and all of these outside sources, and there's all sorts of like I guess you could call it propaganda on the oil rig, because there's like all these outside parties that want to take Scotland's oil. And there's this fight with the crew to keep the oil that they're drawing up from the earth in Scotland, right? And so there's a lot of like politics behind that, and it's all fleshed out through not necessarily text logs, but there's like, you can look at newspaper clippings in the actual oil rig and the cabins and things like that. And it starts out pretty mundanely. You're on this oil rig, and it's Christmas Day. And there's like kind of this flashback at the beginning where it kind of explains why Kaz is on the oil rig, and also how much his wife objects, because she wants him to face the crimes and deal with it. But instead of doing that, he's fleeing and going to this oil rig. And so everything is like pretty normal. And then you get a call like very early on the game from the superintendent of the oil rig. And he calls you up to his office, and he basically says, "You're fucking fired, because I just got a letter from the police." And the police are essentially saying like, we know that he is potentially on the oil rig. Like, you need to cooperate with us. We need to talk to him. And the superintendent's like, "You're fucking fired. You didn't tell me about this. This is, unacceptable." But the superintendent's also a giant asshole, and they do a really good job. The voice acting in this game is fantastic. The character animation, the mocap, is fantastic. And he tells you like, "Get the fuck off my oil rig. Get on the helicopter back."
So you're swimming?
Yeah, no, there's a helipad and a helicopter. Get on the helicopter back to the mainland and deal with your bullshit. And during the sequence, the superintendent receives a phone call from the drillers, and they're like, "Something's going on. Yeah. Like, we're not fucking drilling down where we need to be." And the guy's like, "Fuck it, I don't care. Like, keep on drilling." And because of that, there is like this cataclysmic event, right? And things start to go fucking south on this oil rig, right? And so that's the basic setup of the game. And largely the rest of the game is you playing as Kaz, kind of traversing the oil rig, different parts of the oil rig, and kind of unraveling this very interesting mystery of what they drilled into. And slight spoilers here, but it's not good what they drilled into. Really bad what they drilled into. Some sort of it's not like a ethereal, like ghostly apparition. It's like a biological something or another in the ocean that they drill into. And what starts to happen is, at the beginning of the game, Kaz essentially has to traverse the bottom portion of the oil rig, and you can see like the actual drill, and the main funnel for the oil has been kind of consumed by this like basically mass of tissue, and he's like, "What the fuck is this?"
Venom.
Yeah, kind of like a symbiote. Yeah, sort of, but it's like very colorful, like very like neon colors and like pastel colors. It looks great, like I said. And this is something that I just have to highlight right out of the gate. this is Scottish as fuck, right? So the game recommends that you turn on subtitles, and I'm going to recommend that you turn on subtitles.
You can't understand them.
Because the Scottish dialect is vastly different than like even a British dialect or obviously an American dialect. So there's a lot of very specific terms that they use, and it's brilliant because they'll say it like through the audio, but then in the subtitles, it will like essentially translate what it is. So there's a lot of that going on in this game. And I think that's a brilliant aspect of it. The voice acting is fantastic. There is just a lot of inter dialogue between characters in this game as you kind of traverse through this. And more or less this entity is corrupting passengers on the oil rig, employees, right? And turning them into like monstrosities, but it's also consuming the entire, it starts very slowly at the beginning, but towards the end, like the entire oil rig is essentially like this fleshy mess. And it's gross as fuck and really, really interesting from that perspective. So, the whole game, it's not a combat heavy game. Well, there's no combat. You're not, that's not this game. You're running. You're running away from things. But I will say, like, I know that you don't really like that in horror games in particular. There isn't a lot of sequences in this game where you are actually running from something. It's a lot more about the world building and the character of Kaz. When you start this game, you just think that he's a giant piece of shit. That's the way I felt, at least. I was like, fuck this guy. Like, he needs to go to jail. Like, what a fucking piece of shit. But as the game progresses, I started to really like him and really, really understand his plight. And like, there are flashbacks. One of the interesting kind of dynamics with this entity is that if you get close to it, super close to like certain parts of it, it will start and it's visualized on your screen. Like you get, like if you rub your eyes and like a bunch and you get those like weird flashes that will flash on the screen. And the closer you get to something, you'll start hearing like voices. And usually it's your wife, right? Highlighting things about why, like going back to this whole situation of you leaving and not facing the consequences for your actions. And it's really fascinating from that perspective. They fucking nail it, dude. So yeah, as the game progresses, you start to really kind of understand, like I didn't agree necessarily. Like I'm still like, you beat a guy almost half to death. You got to fucking face the music. But there are, extenuating circumstances where you kind of understand why he would do something like that. And the game frames it, I think, intentionally as this guy being just a giant piece of shit. And then as the game progresses, you're like, okay, I kind of understand. And you're not this terrible person like, initially you think. So, so there are sequences where you're kind of running from this big, nasty thing. And what I will say about those is they're fucking terrifying. The monsters, I think, in this game, which are crew members that are pretty much morphed into these like blobs of meat, more or less. And you will see it, like some crew members don't turn. So there's only a handful of crew members that actually completely turn into enemies that will chase you. The vast majority of the crew members are consumed by this entity and then turned into this like stretched out like putty in the most disturbing and disgusting ways that you could possibly imagine. You'll see someone's face like in the wall and it's like just completely pulled apart, and their eyes, like they're mutating as well. So not 2 eyes, but it'll be like 7 eyes on this person, and their teeth are like falling out of their head, and it's disgusting. Gross. It absolutely looks disgusting. But the ones that actually do mutate and will chase you are also equally terrifying and disgusting. And the way that it's kind of handled is interesting because the people that actually are turning and chasing you, they are maintaining some elements of like their previous self. So they're talking and communicating with you. Like they'll scream and yell at you and say things to you. Almost like they are like fighting whatever sort of this thing is, but it's totally taking control of them, right? But they're gross and they have tentacles. So the tentacles like move around, and really the gameplay loop is you have to hide from them in like different areas of the environments that you're tasked with exploring. And you know, if they get you, it's like death, immediate death. So it's really a stealth based game in a lot of ways. And then the secondary aspect of the gameplay is also like traversal puzzles. So I actually really liked it because it wasn't like, oh, I gotta find a code somewhere, like typical survival horror shit. It was more like
moving point A to point B type
moving point A to point B. Like there's all these bad things that are happening on the oil rig, right? Like, so there's a couple of crew members that are not, they're in the same position as you where they haven't been grabbed and they're communicating with you. You'll run into them at certain points during the game and they tell you like, you got to do this, right? Like at one point in time, the pontoons that the rig is on are filling up with water. So and they're like, you know, it's obviously a buoyancy thing. So you have to have like equal parts air and water to make it stay buoyant. And they're filling up with oil and water, and the thing is sinking. So, you know, that's just one example.
Sounds very BioShock-like, where BioShock always has a new crisis
kind of
across the map and fix.
Yeah. Kind of, but none of it feels like tacked on, and all of it, like it's a very short game. It's 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours. So it's not super long. But all of the objectives that you kind of have to take care of, are logical. And you're like, oh yeah, I need to
Makes
fucking go
sense.
take care of this because this is a problem. I was like on the edge of my seat, ripped with this thing, in terms of going from point A to point B, like you just highlighted. They make it, they explain it well to a layman that doesn't know anything about an oil rig, but also make you feel like you know a lot about an oil rig after you fucking play this game.
That's
so
cool.
it deserves a lot of credit for that. You know, I've seen a lot of people kind of criticizing some of the platforming and things like that. There's platforming in this game.
Yeah.
And I don't really agree with it, honestly. Like, I think that it's all pretty logical in terms of like what you need to do and how you platform. The only thing that this game kind of fails at and kind of is egregious about is the sequences. There are always these, you know, platforms, like you're walking like a balance beam essentially, and you're walking and then something will happen and you'll go, whoa! And then the game's like, you got to balance yourself by like clicking left click to make sure you're balanced. It happens far too often in this game. And it's just like, yeah, I get it. Like, but also
mechanic they got some legs out of.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much. But yeah, most of the gameplay is just exploring this world that I think is really well crafted and understanding what's going on with Kaz and his interactions with all of these really well done characters. So I'm a pretty big fan of this thing, honestly. It's gotten like you either love it or hate it, it seems like, kind of reviews. I am very much in the camp of I love this thing.
Huh.
I think it is fascinating. And I really enjoyed my time with it. Of these like smaller, you know, length games, Crow Country is up there, and I really like that game a lot. It's probably Crow Country and this for the two games that I've enjoyed the most. That are these like smaller form, you know, experiences this year.
These small ones are nice. Sometimes they are able to have a goal and set out and just achieve the thing they're trying to do.
Yeah,
in a nice way, and then it's just a lower investment
for sure. The end of this game in particular is a punch in the fucking dick. It's brutal, and I've seen a lot of people that enjoy it being like, I cried. I didn't cry, but I definitely was like, oh, God damn, this is awful. And it all makes sense. And it's like this, the crux of the game is just this desire to survive more than anything else. Like no matter what, matter how dire the situation is, like I'm going to push forward and I'm going to try to survive. And then being faced with like the objective reality that might not be the best course of action here. So Yeah, man. Big
That's
fan.
cool.
I'm definitely going to play whatever this studio does in the future. I might go back and play. I've always wanted to play Amnesia. Maybe we should check those out. A lot of people like World of Pigs. So
Machine for Pigs?
Machine for Pigs. That's what it is. Yeah.
World of Pigs.
And also people really like Dear Esther. I don't really know anything about it.
I for some reason I thought I might have played it, but I looked it up and I don't mind.
Yeah. So these dudes are doing really good things, and this thing, it hits a lot of highs, and I am a big fan of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
You should play it.
I will. Well, hey, we might have time.
It's 5 hours.
And July's looking a little empty, so which isn't too big of a deal. We'll have. I've been dipping my toe into some other stuff. I've been slowly working through some Stellaris. I will be talking about that when I feel knowledgeable, and I've got a lot to learn. That's a difficult one, but that is going to do it. That is Gamescast 137. You should probably come and join the Discord. Tell us about your experiences with Destiny, all that stuff. Look in the show notes. Look at the website link. We are on YouTube now. The whole deal. That's going to do it. Take it easy, guys.